صلوات ربي وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن سيدنا وإمامنا وقائدنا وحبيبنا رسول الله محمد. الله ربي لا أريد سواه، هل في الوجود حقيقة إلا هو؟ أنا لا أضام وفي رحابك عصمتي، أنا لا أخاف وفي رضاك أماني. سبحانك ربي سبحانك، يا من يهب الكثير ويجبر القلب الكسير ويغفر الزلات. سبحانك ربي سبحانك. السماء دائما وأبدا تقول سبحان من رفعني بقدرته وأمسكني بقوته، فهو ركني وعمادي. سبحانك ربي سبحانك، يا من يرى مد البعوض جناحها في ظلمة الليل البهيم الأليم، ويرى نياق عروقها في نحرها والمخ في تلك العظام النحل، ويرى ويسمع ما دونها في قاع بحر مظلم متجلجل. سبحانك ربي سبحانك. وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدي أبا القاسم يا رسول الله. لو أن إنسانا تخير ملة ما اختار إلا دينك الشرفاء المصلحون أصابع جمعت يدا هي أنت، بل أنت اليد البيضاء زانتك في الخلق العظيم شمائل يغرى بهن ويولع الكرماء. فإذا رحمت فأنت أب أو أم، هذان في الدنيا هما الرحماء. وإذا غضبت يا سيدي فإنما هي غضبة للحق لا ضغن ولا شحناء. وإذا خطبت يا رسول الله فللمنابر هزة تعلو الندي وللقلوب بكاء. يا من له عز الشفاعة وحده وهو المكرم ما له شفعاء. عرش القيامة أنت تحت لوائه، والحوض أن تحيا له السقاء. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليك سيدي يا رسول الله، صلاة وسلاما يليقان بمقام سيد الأنبياء وإمام المرسلين. ثم أما بعد، فحياكم الله وبياكم وطبتم وطاب ممشاكم وتبوأتم من الجنة منزلا. وأسأل الله العلي العظيم كما جمعنا في هذا اليوم بفضله وكرمه على طاعته أن يجمعنا يوم القيامة في مستقر رحمته وتحت لواء محبته، وأن يرزقنا شفاعة نبيه إنه ولي ذلك والقادر عليه. My brothers and sisters in Islam, that's a great time that we meet together for the sake of Allah to fulfill the worship of Allah. And we didn't gather by ourselves, but we gathered here to submit ourselves to the commands of Allah. We gathered here in such of the obedience of Allah. We ask Allah to accept our obedience. We ask Allah to grant our hearts sincerity. And as we come here towards the house of Allah, where everyone is welcomed, where everyone is welcomed, that's our slogan. That's our flag in this masjid, that everyone, when we mean everyone, is welcome, regardless of his race, mother tongue, color, ethnicity, background, where everyone, because that's not a house of somebody, that's a house of Allah. And that's the message of Islam. And I came today to convey a very important message related to our Aqidah. And actually it's a reminder for every Muslim nowadays. We get this message from the Quran, from Surah Al-Baqarah, from the verses 246, 247, 248 and below, where the Quran is telling us the story of Taloot and Jaloot. And that story, lots of Muslims don't know anything about it. Maybe this is the first time for lots of Muslims to know those two names, Taloot and Jaloot, known in English as Saul or Shaul and Goliath. And they were in the time where we know the Prophet Dawood was a young man. He wasn't a prophet yet. And they were in a time after the time of Prophet Moses and before the time of Prophet Dawood. And they were in such area between Iraq, Syria, and Philistine. And the whole history and the whole story took place to show us something that we as Muslims believe in. And it has to be a firm belief in every heart for every Muslim. And I'm delivering this message to remind myself, to remind you as well, how the plan of Allah works. And how and when we get the victory from Allah. And when we talk about we mean our Muslim ummah in large. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us almost the whole story. And Allah skipped some of the unwanted details, because Allah did not want us to look at the details. Lots of people think about only the details. No, I need to know which year, I need to know how many, I need to know, like exactly the story of the people of the cave. And Allah said, سَيَقُولُونَ ثَلَاثَةٌ رَابِعُهُمْ كَلْبُهُمْ وَيَقُولُونَ خَمْسَةٌ سَادِسُهُمْ كَلْبُهُمْ. They say there were 3 and the 4th were their dog. There were 4 and the 5th was the dog. Allah said, do not ask about irrelevant questions. Because these are not the questions that we need to ask. We need to get the lessons. What is the essence? What is the core message of the story? So Allah said that Banu Israel, the children of Israel, and when we talk about Banu Israel, that means the offspring, the progeny of the Prophet Yaqub, as his name is Israel, Prophet Jacob. So we are talking about the descendants of Jacob. They were in a time that they were so humiliated, they were so disgraced, that everyone, every nation around them, they used to humiliate them, especially an oppressor, a dictator, king, a tyrant. His name is Jaloot, Goliath. And they known in the history as the giants. They were giants in the physical structure. So they were working, Banu Israel, with a certain model. They used to have a king who is taking the leadership, the military leadership, and a prophet working with him for guidance. And they already had a prophet. The name of the prophet is Samuel or Samuel. So Samuel or Samuel was their prophet. Some of the narration said Asmuel, named in Arabic as Ismail. In Hebrew, Asmuel. So they had a prophet, but they didn't have a king yet. So they asked their prophet, can you ask Allah to send us a king so we can fight under his leadership? So he said, Allah will send you Taloot as Saul. So they said, how can Allah choose Taloot for us? And he has no authority. He has no wealth. We cannot accept Taloot to be our king. So they wanted the king to have wealth, to have money. And subhanallah, it is like lots of people nowadays are looking and they evaluate people based on their money. Even till today, 2023, they weight you based on your money. They evaluate you based on your job, based on your status in the community. I like that statement for a wise person, Gibran, when he said, I know lots of people are so poor, they only have money. I know lots of people are so poor, all what they have, only money. And that indicates that money does not make you rich, but what you stand for, your principles, your ethics, your values, what you believe in, your Imam, what makes you who you are, not the money. And at that time, the people of Bani Israel, in their previous war with Goliath, they lost the tomb, they lost the casket, the coffin of Musa and Harun, which has some of the remnants, some of the stuff that Sayyidina Musa and Harun had left, like his stick, parts of his garments. So they used to seek the blessings of Allah by carrying the casket in front of the military, so they can seek the blessings of Allah and they can get victory. Since they lost the casket, they never got victory from Allah. So Allah, through the prophet Samuel, Allah told them that the choice for their king from Allah is Taloot. And Allah said, the sign to see in front of your eyes to know that he was chosen from Allah, that you will see in the heavens that the angels of Allah are carrying the casket, are carrying the tomb, which has the remnants of Musa and Harun. And that is indeed what happened. They saw the casket coming from the heavens in front of them, and Allah sent that casket to them. And yet, they had people disbelieved in Allah. And that what made Banu Israel to be cursed after this. That Allah showed them miracles after miracles after miracles. And yet, they are denying. They were hundreds of thousands. And only 10,000 of them had believed in Taloot as a king was sent from Allah. So now you have two persons. The prophet Samuel and the king Taloot, known as Saul or Shaul. So both of them started to talk with the 10,000, those who believed. And I wanted you to think about how Allah is filtering the believers through the tests. Test after test. And lots of people will fail in the test. So he said, now you want to fight Goliath. You wanted to fight Jaloot. Let's march towards Jaloot. After he prepared himself and they started to march, lots of people escaped. And they said, we will not fight. They were crying. They were making dua to Allah. Oh Allah, save us from Goliath. Oh Allah, send us a king that we can fight behind. And when they came to the time of the truth, they escaped. Lots of people nowadays are doing the same. Oh, we hope if Allah can give us chance. We hope if they did that. We hope if they will do this. We hope if they can open the way for us. Be aware who has the most sincerity. Because in the time of the truth, who will be steadfast on the Iman? That was the first test. The command to march, to fight against Goliath. And when they came close, Allah had revealed to the prophet that there will be another test, so Allah can filter the believers. What is the test? They traveled from Iraq to a place close to Philistine at that time. And they were so thirsty. So Allah said, you are about to come to a river. And you guys are so thirsty. Whoever drink from that river, he will not be one of the team of Taloot. You are only allowed to get a handful of water. Only a handful of water. Not more than this. When they came to the river, listen to this. There were almost 4,000 people. You know how many people remained and they only got a handful of water? 330. What about the others? They failed in the test. They failed. They didn't follow. They didn't obey Allah. And Allah wanted them to be filtered before they go to the battlefield. And look at what's going on right now. Allah is filtering Muslims. That's why I told you last Jumu'ah, I can divide people nowadays into 4 groups: believers and disbelievers, hypocrites and cowards. That's why Allah is filtering them. Allah said in the Quran, in Surah Al-Imran, لِيُمَحِّصَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَيَمْحَقَ الْكَافِرِينَ. Allah, through these tests, through what's going on, through what you hear from the news, Allah is filtering the believers. Now, Taloot, the prophet, and the 330, they marched and they continued to fight against Goliath. Goliath had hundreds of thousands of fighters. What Allah said in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah said, وَلَمَّا بَرَزُوا لِجَالُوتَ وَجُنُودِهِ. And when they came to fight against Jaloot, Goliath, and his soldiers, what the 330 said, قالوا, listen to the dua. Here, what I told you last Jumu'ah, here, when your dua works, when you do something, when you go out, when you try to have a certain action, they said, رَبَّنَا أَفْرِضْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا وَانْصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. Oh Allah, grant us patience. Oh Allah, keep our feet firm on the ground so we can fight, and give us victory over the disbelievers. And now, logically, mathematically, rationally, whatever the measurement that you can apply, that will never work. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers against 330. You know, these verses were revealed when exactly? Before the battle of Badr. Allah wanted to teach Muslims what is going to happen in Badr. Long time before Badr. And what is the number that the Muslims had in the battle of Badr? Almost the same number. 317, 330, 320, almost the same number. So Allah wanted to give the Muslims that lesson. And you know what? Amongst the 330, there was a young man. What is the name of that young man? Dawood alayhi salam. King David, Prophet David. Dawood alayhi salam, the Prophet of Allah. He was short, weak. He was young man. But now, the big lesson for all Muslims nowadays, what Sayyidina Umar said, إِنَّمَا نَنْتَصِرُ عَلَى أَعْدَائِنَا بِإِيمَانِنَا وَإِخْلَاصِنَا فَإِنْ قَلَّ إِيمَانُنَا انتصروا علينا بعددهم وعتادهم. It's not about your equipment. It's not about your number. It's not about anything else. It's about your sincerity and your iman. And actually, I wanted you to name for me any battle, any war that happened throughout the history that the Muslims got victory because they outnumbered the other team. You would never find it. And that's the main lesson. It is not about the number of people. And that's why I always say, nowadays we are 2 billion Muslims. But do we have any weight in the scale? Do we have any weight in the scale? No. No weight in the scale. Because it's not about the number. It's about the quality. Do not think that we are happy when we see people coming to declare Islam because we will have more numbers. We don't want more numbers. But we are happy, hoping from Allah that maybe that person will have the quality that we are looking for. It's about the quality of Iman. It's not about the massive number. Rasulullah, he said in the other hadith, he said, Ya Rasulullah, we will be weak in that status. We will be humiliated. Is that because of our few number? He said, no. وَلَكِنَّكُمْ كَثِيرٌ كَغُثَاءِ السَّيْلِ. You will be too large in number, but you will be like the foam of the ocean. Rasulullah said that 14 centuries ago. So what happened with Jaloot and Taloot and the 330? Allah said they went to the battlefield, they asked Allah to give them strength and power. And you know, here is the surprise. Allah said, فَهَزَمُوهُمْ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. They defeated them by the permission of Allah. And that's another lesson. I get it whenever I read بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ وَمَا النَّصْرُ إِلَّا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ إِن تَنْصُرُوا اللَّهَ يَنْصُرْكُمْ فَتَعَلَّقُوا بِاللَّهِ فمن اعتمد على ماله قل ومن اعتمد على علمه مل ومن اعتمد على الناس ذل ومن اعتمد على الله فلا قل ولا ضل ولا ذل ولا مل. Do not depend on anybody except Allah. You will depend on your money, Allah will humiliate you. Depend on your knowledge, Allah will lead you astray. Depend on your connection, Allah will make you to be humiliated on the ground. And whoever was depending only on Allah. That's why it's a test for the Iman. What are we living right now? It's about the test of Iman. Do not be tricked. Do not be deceived. Do not be distracted. Only علق قلبك بالله. Allah said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ. What about if you came to the time when you have Dajjal, when you have Ya'juj and Ma'juj? That's why no one will remain having Iman except those who have the correct aqeedah. اعتصموا بحبل الله. Hold firmly to the rope of Allah. And that's why in the battlefield, Taloot, the king, the believer, looked around and he said, who will be able to kill Jaloot, Goliath, the giant, the muscular, the tyrant, the oppressor? I will make him to marry my daughter and he will share me in the kingdom. He will be a king with me. At that time, Dawood, the young man, the believer, he popped up. And look at the miracle when it comes. It's not about the weapon. It's not about this. You know, how did he kill Jaloot? The giant, the physical power structure. He killed him with a little piece of a rock. He threw the rock over him. He hit him with the rock. He fell on the ground and he died. That's it. Imam, come on. Yes. Allah said in the Quran, if you do not believe me, go to the Quran. Allah said, وَقَتَلَ دَاوُودُ Jaloot. And Dawood, was able to kill Goliath. And when that happened, and all the soldiers of Goliath saw their king was killed, they escaped, they flee, they run away. And Allah granted the 330 victory over hundreds of thousands of soldiers. And what happened after this? Allah said, وَآتَاهُ اللَّهُ الْمُلْكَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. Allah granted him kingdom and wisdom. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supported Dawood with both. Now, Dawood was the first one to get both. To be a leader and to be a prophet at the same time. Then Sulaiman followed him. He was the first one to get both in one hand. The kingdom and the prophethood. May Allah guide us to these meanings. May Allah grant us victory and grant us those Muslims who have good quality in Islam. Allahumma ameen. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله. الحمد لله وكفى وصلاة وسلاما على النبي المصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم. My brothers and sisters, just because of the time, of course we had lots of things to talk about, but because of the time, one last point I wanted to share with you very quickly. It's about the gift of Allah. It's about the message of Allah. The words of Allah to all of us. Where is the message? Where is the gift? It is the Quran. The Quran that we have in our houses. The book of Allah that we keep on the shelves, having dust over it. And we remove that dust every year when it comes to Ramadan. Then we read to count hasanat, good deeds, rewards. Finish, put it back. See you next Ramadan, inshallah. Let me ask you, do you think that Allah had sent that book only to be read in the Ramadan and only to get hasanat through that book? No. You and I, we memorize Alif Lam Mim. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. This book which has the guidance. And listen to Rasulullah. He said, I have left for you two sources. If you stick with, you will never go astray. The book of Allah and my sunnah. My life, my model of life, my way of life, the book of Allah, my message. This time, when you see that test, I want you to go back to the Quran. Read, but not only to get hasanat. Read to understand. And I said before, almost like 5 years ago, I said we need to do 5 things with the Quran. Reading, understanding, applying, teaching others, seeking cure and healing. If we did those, Quran will take effect in our life. We will live by Quran. May Allah guide us to the right path. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite our ummah. Allahumma ameen. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those people who listen to the commands of Allah and they obey. Allahumma اغفر لنا ذنوبنا. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا. اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين. اللهم اعل بفضلك كلمتي الحق والدين. اللهم انصر إخواننا في فلسطين. اللهم ثبت أقدامهم. اللهم ثبت أقدامهم. اللهم وحد صفنا واجمع كلمتنا. حببنا إلى بعضنا. ألف اللهم بين قلوبنا. اللهم اجمع شتات أمتنا. اللهم اجمع شتات أمتنا. اللهم وحد صفنا وانصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين. اللهم تقبل شهداءهم. اللهم اشف مصابيهم. اللهم ثبت أقدامهم. اللهم ثبت الأرض من تحت أقدامهم. اللهم من أرادنا وديننا بخير فوفقه يا رب العالمين، ومن أرادنا وديننا بشر فاجعل كيده في نحره، واجعل تدبيره تدميره، واجعل الدائرة عليه، وأرنا فيه يوما أسودا إنك على كل شيء قدير. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأقم الصلاة. قوموا إلى صلاتكم يرحمكم الله.